May 14th, 1945, Pier 92, New York Harbor. The steel gangway groans under jackboots as the first line of German prisoners shuffles down onto American soil. Salt air mixes with diesel fumes, gulls scream overhead, and standing at the bottom, idling with that peculiar stuttering rumble, sit 3 olive-drab Willys MB Jeeps. Oberleutnant Klaus Becker pauses halfway down the ramp. He's 26, captured 3 weeks ago outside Bremen, still wearing his iron cross beneath the threadbare tunic. His eyes fall on the nearest jeep, and something like a smirk tugs at the corner of his mouth. "Look at that," he mutters in German to the man behind him, a hollow-eyed Gefreiter from Hamburg. "They're little toys." The Gefreiter nods, exhausted but willing to share the joke. The jeep looks absurd next to the towering cargo cranes, small, boxy, almost comical with its flat hood and exposed steering column. No armour, no weight, just a tin frame on 4 tiny wheels that look like they'd buckle under the first pothole. Becker has spent 4 years watching tiger tanks lumber through French villages and panthers grind across the Russian steppe. This looks like something a farmer would use to haul vegetables. By the time the column of prisoners reaches the bottom, American MPs are waving them toward a line of trucks. But a handful, the officers mostly, are directed toward the jeeps instead. Special processing, they're told. Different facility. Becker climbs into the back of the lead jeep. The seat is canvas. The suspension is hard as concrete. As the engine coughs to life, and they lurch forward onto West 52nd Street, he exchanges a glance with Hauptmann Ernst Weber, sitting across from him. Weber fought at Kursk. He commanded a company of panzer grenadiers until the bitter end, and right now, watching the Manhattan skyline roll past, he looks genuinely amused. "This is what beat us?" Weber says quietly, tapping the thin metal frame with one knuckle. "This?" The MP driving doesn't understand German, but he catches the tone. He doesn't say anything, just keeps his eyes forward as the jeep weaves through midday traffic, past honking Chevrolets and delivery trucks, under the shadow of buildings so tall they seem to scrape clouds. But Becker isn't looking at the skyline anymore. He's looking at the streets. At first, it's just noise, the chaos of a city too loud, too fast, too crowded. But then patterns start to emerge. Rows of identical sedans parked bumper to bumper. Storefronts crammed with goods he hasn't seen in years. Tires, radios, canned food stacked in pyramids behind plate glass. A Coca-Cola truck rumbles past, its bed loaded with wooden crates, and Becker counts them without meaning to. 40 crates, maybe 50. Just one truck. The jeep turns west onto a highway, and the city begins to thin. Warehouses now, rail yards, and everywhere, there are vehicles. Trucks lined up at loading docks, forklifts moving pallets, freight trains stretching so long Becker loses count of the cars before they disappear around a bend. Weather has stopped smiling. "Where are they taking us?" the Gefreiter asks from the jeep behind them, voice tight. Nobody answers, because nobody knows. But as the convoy picks up speed, heading south along the New Jersey Turnpike, something shifts in the air inside that little canvas-seated jeep. The jokes die, the smirks fade, and Becker finds himself staring at the dashboard, at the stamped steel and exposed bolts, wondering for the first time if maybe this ugly little vehicle isn't a toy at all. Maybe it's a warning. The jeeps pull off the highway 2 hours later, just outside Newark. The facility sprawls across what looks like half a square mile, low, flat buildings with sawtooth roofs and smokestacks pumping thin grey columns into the afternoon sky. A sign at the gate reads, Eastern Aircraft Division, General Motors. Becker doesn't recognise the name, neither does Weber. But as the jeeps roll through the checkpoint and into the facility grounds, the noise hits them first. Not the roar of bombs or artillery, something worse. The rhythmic, mechanical thunder of industry. The convoy stops outside Building 7. An American captain, tall, bored-looking, clipboard in hand, waves them out. The prisoners step onto asphalt still warm from the sun, and for a moment they just stand there, blinking in the light, unsure what they're supposed to be seeing. Then the captain gestures toward the open hangar doors. "Gentlemen," he says in clipped, almost bored English, "welcome to the line." Becca steps forward and stops cold. Inside the hangar, stretched out across a floor the size of a football field, is an assembly line. Not for jeeps, not for trucks, for aeroplanes. TBM Avengers, to be exact, torpedo bombers, dozens of them in various stages of completion, moving slowly along tracks, surrounded by workers in coveralls and hard hats. Becca watches as a fuselage section glides past on rollers, rivets still glowing hot, while a team of women, swarming it with pneumatic tools, attaching wings in a choreographed blur of motion. 15 seconds. That's how long it takes them to bolt one wing into place. 15 seconds. Behind him, Weber breathes a single word. Unmöglich. Impossible. But it's not impossible. It's happening right in front of them. Another fuselage rolls into position. Another wing gets lifted by an overhead crane, swung into place with hydraulic precision, lowered, locked, riveted. The workers barely look up. They've done this 1,000 times. The captain checks his watch. "This building produces 1 TBM every 40 minutes, he says, almost conversationally. "We have 6 buildings like this. Different models." Becker does the math in his head. 1 plane every 40 minutes, 6 buildings, that's... He stops, recalculates, tries again. "Scheiße," someone whispers behind him. The captain doesn't react. He just turns and walks toward the far end of the hangar, motioning for them to follow. They do, because there's nothing else to do. And as they walk, Becker starts noticing things. The sheer number of workers. Hundreds, maybe thousands, moving in efficient clusters. The stockpiles of parts. Engines lined up like soldiers, propellers hanging from racks, crates of instruments and radios stacked 10 high. The cranes overhead, the conveyor belts, the forklifts zipping between stations with loads of aluminum sheeting. There are no delays, no bottlenecks, just flow. At the end of the line, a freshly completed Avenger sits on its landing gear, propeller gleaming, cockpit still open. A quality inspector climbs inside, checks something on a clipboard, climbs back out. A tug hooks to the nose wheel and tows it toward the open doors at the rear of the hangar, toward the airfield, where 60 more Avengers sit in perfect rows, waiting for delivery. Weber has gone pale. The captain glances back at them. Questions? No one speaks. Because what do you even ask? How many factories like this exist? How many assembly lines? How many workers? How many shifts? How many planes rolling off these floors every single day while you were fighting in hedgerows and trenches, believing you still had a chance? Becker looks down at his hands. They're shaking. The captain leads them back to the jeeps. As they climb in, the convoy rolling out through the gates, Becker catches one last glimpse through the chain-link fence. Another building, bigger than the first. And through its open doors, he can just make out the nose of something larger. A bomber. The jeep turns south, and nobody says a word. They drive for another hour before the landscape changes again. Flat industrial sprawl gives way to something older, denser. Railroad tracks crisscrossing like veins, warehouses stacked shoulder to shoulder, and in the distance, chimneys. Hundreds of them. The convoy slows as it approaches a security gate far larger than the last one. Guards wave them through without inspection. The jeeps roll forward onto a paved road that stretches between 2 massive complexes, and for a moment, Becker thinks they've entered a city. Then he realizes. This is the city. The sign bolted to a brick wall reads, Ford River Rouge Complex, Dearborn, Michigan. Weber leans forward. Gott im Himmel. The complex sprawls across more than 1,000 acres. From the jeep, Becker can see blast furnaces belching orange flame, rolling mills hammering out sheets of steel, smokestacks pumping exhaust into a sky already grey with haze. Rail cars crawl along elevated tracks, dumping coal and iron ore into hoppers the size of houses. Barges glide down a canal cut straight through the centre of the facility, their holds filled with raw materials that disappear into the gullet of the plant. And everywhere, there is motion. The jeeps pull into a visitor's lot. The captain steps out first, stretching like he's done this tour a dozen times. This facility, he says, lighting a cigarette, produces one complete automobile every 49 seconds. Silence. During the war, he continues, we converted 3 buildings to military production, jeeps mostly, some tank engines, B-24 sub-assemblies. He exhales smoke. Still running the car lines, though. Civilian demand doesn't stop just because there's a war. Becker stares at him. 49 seconds. 1 car. Not 1 car per day. Not 1 car per hour. Every 49 seconds. The captain gestures toward a tower overlooking the main production floor. You want to see it? No one answers, but they follow. The observation deck is enclosed in glass, suspended 3 stories above the factory floor. As Becker steps inside, the noise becomes muted. Still present, still thunderous, but filtered through thick panes that rattle with every hammer strike below. And below is a river, not of water, of steel. The assembly line stretches from one end of the building to the other, a serpentine conveyor belt carrying automobile chassis in an unbroken stream. Workers stand at fixed stations, each performing a single task, bolting an axle, installing a windshield, mounting a tyre, before the chassis moves on. Overhead cranes swing engines into place. Robotic arms, are they robotic? Becker can't tell. Lower body panels with millimetre precision. Paint booths glow with heat as freshly assembled frames glide through on hooks, emerging seconds later in glossy olive drab. The whole system moves with a rhythm so precise it feels almost alive. A foreman below checks his stopwatch, marks something on a clipboard, doesn't even glance up as another completed vehicle, a Ford GPW military variant, rolls off the end of the line and into a staging area where a driver immediately climbs in, starts the engine, and drives it toward a lot already packed with hundreds more. Weber grips the railing. His knuckles are white. We were told, his voice cracks. He starts again. We were told America was weak, soft, that they couldn't match German engineering, that their factories were propaganda, Becker says quietly. Ja, propaganda. But it wasn't just propaganda. They believed it. Every soldier, every officer, every tank commander who rolled into Poland and France, believing the Reich had the industrial advantage, the superior machines, the unstoppable momentum. And now? Now Becker is standing in a glass box, watching a factory churn out vehicles faster than he can count, and realizing with cold, creeping certainty that everything he believed was a lie. The captain taps ash from his cigarette. We have 120 facilities like this across the country, give or take. 120, give or take. Weber turns away from the glass. His face is grey. I want to go back to the jeep. The captain nods. Fair enough. As they descend the stairs, Becker glances back one last time. The line hasn't stopped. It never stops. Even now, as the afternoon shifts toward evening, the conveyor belts roll, the cranes swing, the workers move in their perfect, relentless choreography. 49 seconds. 1 vehicle. Every 49 seconds. He does the math again, multiplies by minutes, by hours, by days, and the number that emerges is so large he stops counting. The convoy doesn't return to New York. Instead, the jeeps head west, deeper into the American heartland. They pass through Cleveland, Akron, Toledo. Each city looks the same, smokestacks on the horizon, rail yards choked with freight, factories humming through the night. At one point, somewhere outside Gary, Indiana, the convoy stops at a rail crossing. A freight train rolls past. Becker counts the cars out of habit. He stops at 200. The train keeps going. 300. 400. Flat cars loaded with tanks. Shermans, dozens of them, brand new, treads still wrapped in protective covering. Boxcars stamped with military codes. Gondola cars heaped with artillery shells. Tank cars carrying fuel. More flat cars with aircraft fuselages chained down under tarps. The train rolls for 11 minutes before the caboose finally clears the crossing. The jeep starts moving again. Nobody speaks. That night, they're quartered in a POW camp outside Chicago, temporary housing before the final processing. The barracks are clean, too clean. Bunks with actual mattresses, a mess hall serving hot food, electric lights overhead. Becker lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. In the bunk next to him, Weber is awake too. "Did you see the rail yard?" Weber whispers. "Yeah. There were, I don't know, 1,000 cars? More?" "More." Silence. Then Weber says, very quietly, "We never had a chance, did we?" Becker doesn't answer right away, because the truth is he doesn't know when the war was lost. Was it at Stalingrad? At Kursk? Maybe earlier. Maybe the moment Germany declared war on a nation that could produce a car every 49 seconds, a bomber every 40 minutes, and still have enough industrial capacity left over to feed its civilians Coca-Cola and ice cream. "No," Becker finally says. "We never did." In the morning, they're loaded onto a bus for the final leg of the journey, a POW interrogation facility somewhere in rural Illinois. As the bus rolls through the countryside, Becker watches farmlands scroll past. Cornfields, silos, small towns with white churches and tidy main streets. No bomb craters, no rubble, no refugees, just peace. And it hits him, finally, with the weight of a collapsing building. This country fought a war on two fronts, Europe and the Pacific, while its cities stayed untouched. Its factories ran at full capacity, its farms kept producing, its people kept shopping, kept driving, kept living normal lives. Meanwhile, Germany's cities burned, its factories were bombed into rubble, its people starved, and they kept fighting anyway. Because they didn't know. Nobody told them. Nobody showed them. Not until it was far too late. The bus pulls into the facility, a low compound surrounded by chain link and guard towers. As the prisoners file out, an American major stands waiting, hands clasped behind his back. "Gentlemen," he says in accented but serviceable German, "welcome. You'll be here for a few weeks while we process your documentation and arrange repatriation. In the meantime, you'll have access to the mess hall, the library, and the recreation yard. If you cooperate, this will be comfortable. If you don't," he shrugs, "well, you've seen what we're capable of." He doesn't mean violence. He means this: the factories, the assembly lines, the endless river of steel. As the major walks away, Becker looks down at the jeep that brought them here. The same olive-drab Willys MB that he mocked on the pier in New York, the toy that seemed so laughable just days ago. It's parked near the gate, engine still ticking as it cools. Becker walks over, runs a hand along the hood. The metal is warm, and stamped into the frame, just below the windshield, is a small metal plate. Willys Overland Motors, Toledo, Ohio, 1945. Unit 362,719. 362,719. That's not a production number. That's a serial number. Meaning this Jeep, this single, unremarkable vehicle, is just one of hundreds of thousands. Becker's hand drops to his side. Behind him, Weber has seen it too. "Mein Gott," Weber breathes. And finally, they understand. It was never about superior tactics, or better soldiers, or advanced technology. It was about this: the ability to turn entire cities into factories, to produce vehicles faster than they could be destroyed, to churn out planes and tanks and ships and rifles in numbers so vast that no amount of bravery or brilliance could ever overcome them. The war wasn't lost on the battlefield. It was lost here, in the assembly lines of Detroit, in the shipyards of Virginia, in the aircraft plants of California, in every factory, every rail yard, every warehouse that kept running, kept building, kept producing, while the Reich's industrial heart was crushed under the weight of its own overreach. Becker looks at the Jeep one last time. Then he turns and walks into the compound. The gate closes behind him. And somewhere, back in Michigan, the line keeps moving.